Okay, everybody, we're back, and so is the PGA Tour with the Fortinet Championship. This is the RotoWire Rundown. You know the routine at this point. I'm Keith Stewart from Read the Line. On the other side of me, that's Len Hochberg, senior golf writer at RotoWire. Len, it was an extensive, long PGA Tour off season. What did you do with all your time off?
It took me almost that long to figure out the rules of the FedEx Cup fall and what's going to happen with the point standings and all of that. It's pretty complicated. Try to break it down a little bit in my article that's dropping soon. And also, unfortunately, I watched my Giants embarrass themselves on national television the other night.
Well, this is the rundown, and I got to go quick. So I definitely don't want to talk about the Giants or those rules. We'll get to that off camera. But what we're going to start with is, there's a couple notable players in the field. One is the two-time defending champ, but the other one we didn't really expect to see in this field of 156, and that's Justin Thomas. He's that USA team locker room leader, and he's here, right? What do you think his chances are this week?
All eyes will be on Justin Thomas. And, the whole thing about form and whether he's in form or out of form, well, pretty much everyone by now is potentially out of form. They've been off for a few weeks. Most of these guys have been off for like 5 or 6 or 7 weeks by now. Very few of these guys have been playing, maybe a couple here and there in Europe or Corn Ferry or something like that. So I don't think we have that to fall back on. Look, it's a terribly, terribly weak field. Do I expect Justin Thomas to win? No, but he's played this tournament well before. He hasn't been here in 4 years, but he had 3 top 10s going back to earlier in his career. So I expect him to do pretty well. I don't think he'll win. He darn well finished better than Zach Johnson, though.
Well, I didn't even think about that. But you know what? I was surprised to learn what you just pointed out, which is he's played here 5 times before with 3 top 8 finishes. I think that there was a lot of pressure on him coming down the stretch to make this team. Now that he knows he made it, I think I'm with you. JT's probably not going to win, but I think he's going to fare well. He'll make the cut. Definitely a top 20. If you want to go that way, that's the way I'm leaning with JT. Now, where are we talking about? We're going out to Napa. It's Silverado's Resort and Spa. Sounds good to me, Len. A little wine country. We've got the North Course. And, what I'm looking at is when it comes to the golf course, they've made a couple of changes. Now, they've changed the routing, and 10 holes have been switched around. And in doing so, a lot of people are going to be talking about wedge work and all this other stuff that led to, maybe Max Homa winning a couple times. But I look at that list of names, and you've got Stewart Cink, Max Homa, Cam Champ, Kevin Tway. These guys all move the golf ball. I think the driver is a huge skill needed this week. In fact, the North Course there at Silverado is one of the least penal for missing the fairway on tour, even though it seems pretty tight. And with those changes to the routing, they've put 3 par 5s in the final 7 holes. So I'm leaning on driver. What are you leaning on for your editorials this week when we start talking the North Course for the Fortinet Championship?
Yeah, even though the fairways are kind of narrow and tree lined and all of that, we've seen that the last number of years, guys are just taking out driver and just hitting it. And and that will count for something. I do think this course lends itself to shorter hitters being in the equation. In my picks, in my RotoWire article, I have a lot of shorter hitters. I don't think they're going to be behind the 8 ball like they will on some really long tracks. This is 7,200 for a par 72. That is short by today's standards. So I bring a lot of those shorter hitters into play. But we see some greens missed. I think scrambling will matter. One thing that's really interesting is that some bad putters have won this tournament through the years. Emiliano Grillo won it. Brendan Steele won 2 in a row. Even the last few years, Max Homa winning twice, and Stewart Cink in 2 years before that. Neither one of them putted really great, yet Cink still got to 21 under.
You know what? That's a great point. I never think of Cam Champ as somebody like Ben Crenshaw and use them in the same sentence. So, at the end of the day, I think what you're focused on, and always your editorials are on point. They're excellent. Speaking of excellent, though, got to get back to this Ryder Cup thing. It's happening in a couple of weeks. And we've got 2 guys in the field, Homa and JT. We made a point about JT. Of course, Homa's won this 2 years in a row. but they're the only Ryder Cuppers that are here. You're talking about narrow fairways. Marco Simone has narrow fairways. The guys have been over for the practice round. The BMW PGA Championship, which is happening over in Europe this week, is their flagship DP World Tour event. All 12 Euros are participating in that field, and we have 2 over here. Something with that just maybe doesn't sit right with me. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, I think I just saw the pairings before we came on, and I think there are 4 groups of 3. All those 12 guys are playing together, which might even be a clue as to their little pods for a couple of weeks down the road. But I think they have an edge there. Not only are they playing golf, and a lot of the Americans will have been idle since the Tour Championship, but they're bonding. I'm sure Luke Donald has got some things planned. Sorry, Adrian Meronk, not invited, where they're going to get out for team dinner or something like that, or multiple team dinners. Better do it Thursday and Friday before someone makes a cut. But I do like the fact that the Americans went over to Marco Simone, and they did. 9 of them at least went over there. So I don't make too big a deal of this. I think they've been team bonding in advance of the Ryder Cup, and a little bit of golf in advance of the Ryder Cup.
Well, there was quite a report that came back from the vice captains and some of the players that went over about 7 days ago for the Team USA practice round, that the fairways were severely pinched. The rough was literally 5 to 6 inches long. They have really set this thing up almost like Le Golf National on steroids or something. I don't know. And I wonder if when the Euros are over this week, or just leading up to the BMW, if they played it and they were like, well, hey, man, you got to mow something here. But it's just interesting that here's this tight golf course here on the PGA Tour that the guys could have played. Only 2 guys are going. One feels like he has to, the 2-time defending champ, and the other guy feels like he has something to prove, but the other 10 are taking the week off. I mean, a bunch of those guys live in California. For me, I think it's a missed opportunity to prepare for Marco Simone. I'm with you there, all the team bonding and everything. But, we've said this from the beginning. Either the buddies trip is going to work or it isn't. And we're going to find out more about that next week, right? So that's the rundown for the Fortinet Championship. Len and I will be back in 7 days' time, and we'll have some more Ryder Cup conversations. In the meantime, you can find his excellent editorial on RotoWire, and you can find me on Read the Line. Enjoy all the golf in wine country and Wentworth this weekend.